What is going on, my fellow Summit Chasers, and welcome back to the Summit Coffee Club. We took a little bit of a break, and we're back in 2025. That's a weird year. We're a quarter through the century. That's amazing. I didn't think I was going to make it here, but we are here, and we're very, very excited about what we're doing and what's coming up this year. And we're very excited for everybody who's kind of stuck with us. Some of the new podcasts that we're actually going to be announcing new shows. I don't like using the word podcast anymore. It's getting kind of overused. But we have some new shows that are coming out that I'm excited to talk a little bit, maybe tease a little bit on this episode with some of our guests. And our strategy challenge is blowing up. And we are very, very excited about it. We have another one coming up, another cohort coming up in February. We're very excited to release some of the testimonials and case studies that we've been having. Amazing case studies and amazing turnarounds in a lot of people's businesses in the last really 2-3 months. Just the last 2-3 months. That's it. That's all. That's how long it takes. If you really dedicate, make the right decisions, look at the right data, ask the right questions, get the right people on board, get the right people on your team, and get the right people involved. You'll be really amazing how quickly you can turn things around, or how quickly you can add to some of the amazing things that you're already doing. But I'm going to bring up my partner in crime. She just popped in here. She looks ready to go. So it depends on what your definition of that is. But Audrina, what's going on? Good morning.
Good morning. How are we?
I think we're doing great. How are you?
Good. I am good.
Do you have your coffee?
Yeah, I made it literally just in the nick of time.
Perfect. It's still weird here in the morning, because we're still in Canada for another few months, and it's still very dark right now, and it takes so much longer to like get your morning moving when it still feels like it's 2 o'clock in the morning when it's 7 a.m. in the morning. But what are you most excited about for 2025?
You are fully putting me on the spot right now.
Yeah.
Getting back to Vegas.
Yes, we're setting up home base back in Vegas.
That is what I'm most excited about for sure.
By May June-ish type of thing. What are you so excited about? Like what about that? I have some ideas on why that's so excited. There's personal reasons, obviously, and then there's
Yeah.
just opportunity reasons. But what
Yeah.
are your reasons?
I mean, yeah, personal 1000%. My nail girl is in Vegas that I just love, and I have not had cute nails in like, oh gosh, like a year and a half now probably. So I'm so excited to go back and see M. Like I literally cannot wait. Restaurants, shopping, despise the summer, so we're choosing really good timing for getting back there, but I'm so excited to like
Yeah.
have the good weather, like 8 months out of the year.
Mhm.
Lots of things, lots of things.
Yeah, we're doing the opposite of what we like weather-wise, what we should be
For
doing.
sure,
We're staying in Canada for the
for
winter
sure.
and then moving to Vegas in the summer.
Yeah,
We
makes
did that.
sense.
We did that wrong. But extenuating circumstances. I'm very excited that I'm excited to be back kind of like in that hustle and bustle.
Mm,
Like in that, like you can like Vegas. A lot of people think, especially if you haven't been to Vegas a lot, or if you go to Vegas and you just go to the Strip, they think the Vegas is just the Strip. They think it's just crazy lights, crazy people, crazy expensive, and all this kind of stuff. And it is. I mean, comparatively, it is sort of expensive. It's not like a California, New York, or anything like that. But you can jump into the noise, you can jump into the excitement, but then you can just as quickly back out of the excitement.
mhm.
Because it actually, the city is very big. It has a very like big peripheral, kind of quiet communities. Like where we lived
Yeah,
before, Southern Highlands was actually very, very quiet, and it was
yeah,
still a very short drive to get to the craziness. But I'm very excited to be able to be very short distance, short time from the excitement, the noise, the opportunity, and also Vegas is much more appealing place for people to come visit than Claresholm, Alberta, Canada. Although it is very cute here, and we're only 20
it is
minutes away
super
from a
cute.
place that has really good meat pies. So there's that. There's that. What about is there something that I think I'm having like a personal conversation with you on live air, but
I
that's what
know.
we do.
Let's do it.
That's what we do here. From like a business perspective, Today we're going to be kind of talking about, like, because that's something with New Year's. Like, you really see, and especially as we've had people go through the strategy challenge, we really see how your personal values affect the way you make decisions, the way you look at certain situations, and the way you identify opportunities. Right. And we
Yeah.
saw that really, really clearly and really, really vastly, like a lot of different examples of different types of people, how they can look at the same problem and see it from so many different ways just based on past experiences and their values and just how they've kind of grown up in their lives and in business. Um, is there something like what type of, like, as we go into the new year and we look at, like, our own values, like the Summit Chaser values and another partner that we're going to be bringing on here pretty quickly? Um, how has your personal values, you think, differed the way that you do business or the way that you see opportunities?
That's a good question, and I think it's potentially gonna go in a way that you wouldn't have maybe expected.
Still
Some
surprise me.
personal values. I yeah, we'll see if I can. I, as much as I have, like, big visions and big goals, I'm not one that lives in, like, a dreamer land. So I think when I
Yep.
approach, like, I tend to look at, like, what is realistic? What can we push for that's still, like, slightly out of our comfort zone, but I'm not like a head in the sky, head in the clouds, I guess that's the phrase, head in the clouds kind of person where I'm like, all these huge, ginormous visions, goals can come to life. I like to focus on, like, what is actually attainable, maybe just out of reach so that you still can push, but something that's still within like, the realms of reality, I think.
Mhm,
So, I think that's a big part of, like, when we look at Summit Chasers or, other businesses that we're involved in, I kind of keep my feet rooted to the ground
mhm.
in, like, yes, let's push, but what's realistic, what's attainable with some extra effort. Yeah, does that answer your question?
No, it does, 'cause I can contrast it. So my previous agency, we were all psychos. Like, we were all like, "No, we could go to the moon." Like, that's pretty easy to do, right? People have done it before, there's no reason we can't. Um, and then we would just kinda like, we would just hit our head against a wall. We would pick different parts of the same wall, but we would just keep hitting our head against the wall until we figured something out. Whereas I found since we've partnered together, it's been a lot better balance of,
Mm,
like, because I live on clouds a lot of times.
yeah.
Um, and you live like you're like the umbrella. Like, you're like realistic. It's like we can go for a walk, but like we need some shit
Yeah.
to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
for
it's
sure.
been it's definitely changed the way, like, we talk about, like, your personal values, like, as the founder, the entrepreneur, how your personal values
Mhm.
affect and impact your brand identity. Like, I can definitely, just having that contrast, it's it's a huge, it makes a huge impact. Huge impact. And I don't think that people see that or take that into consideration enough. Because then we've also seen that with the people that have gone through that, either we're working with, the businesses that we're working with, or just the ones that have gone through the challenge itself. We see how they're like, usually we ask them some pretty, like, we get into the nitty-gritty of some things, like their purpose, like, why are they doing this type of thing, and then asking people to solve problems and make decisions. Like, you learn a lot about people, and you see how they could have. We've had a lot of people that have very similar types of businesses, do similar services,
Mhm.
similar industries, even similar parts of the country, and how different they see problems, how different they
Right.
see what could be important to their customers, and what types of customers. This is going to sound bad, but what types of customers they're more passionate about helping. Like, you could,
Mm,
like, they look the same on the outside if they explained what they did and who they are and where they came from, and be like, oh, they're doing the
right.
exact same thing. But then you get those little nuances, just like they make decisions just a little bit differently, just based on their own values, and they might not even know it, but that
Yeah.
changes so much about their business and their business identity. And I'm very excited to bring up our partner. She's not a guest. This is stupid. Guest is
No.
stupid. She's our partner in crime. Okay, crime's not our business. That's not what we do. But um, because she's had tons of businesses, and she's had so similar to me too, is and similar to you as well, where we've our if we were to take kind of like our entire life cycle of being in business, like we've had a lot of like seasons of life as we've gone through it, and how
Mhm.
like our values have adjusted and changed and evolved, and then how we do business, how we make decisions has evolved. So I'm interested to see her idea on some of these things. But welcome, Sydney. How we doing? Ooh, what is
Oh,
that?
your computer's doing the thing.
It's doing the thing. We're gonna remove her until then.
Just for
Yeah,
a
it does
minute.
that weird every once in a while. It sounds like Pac-Man.
Yeah, Pac-Man's a perfect way to describe that noise for
Pac-Man's a really
sure.
good way to describe it. So
Yeah.
part of our so I wanted to announce I wanted to help tease your guys' podcast. And it's not gonna sound like that when you
No.
guys do it.
No, let's hold
No,
on for
just
that.
you can see Sydney just shaking her head in the backstage. Um, and well, I'll let you, but I'm really excited about it because it really highlights, especially because especially since the pandemic. But I mean, this kind of uh, I guess type of entrepreneur has been evolving and growing fairly quickly over the last 10, definitely over the last 5 years, which is like the stay-at-home parents, mompreneurs type of thing who are running businesses from home by themselves or with really really small teams, and or even just bigger companies, like just but you have other things outside of that, like you have parents, you're trying to have it all, you're trying to have your cake, bake it, eat it too, and then also have some pie on the side. And then how it's not like we look at some of these other entrepreneurs, like the more like the ones that have gone, either they've gone through it for 20 years so things look like it's easy, or the ones that haven't had to go through it and they make you think it should be easy type of thing, but really it's
Yep.
not. Like there's crazy shit that you have to go through. So we're going to try this again with Sydney. Oh, it's still doing it.
There.
What is that?
Hopefully she has the new headphones that Santi got her, or else she's gonna hear about it.
Yeah, her husband, they're also a couplepreneurs, and
Couple,
let's try this
couple. Are
again.
we coining a new term right now? Are we coining a new term?
It's still there. No, it's still there. Oh,
It's
it's gone. And it's still there. Yeah, it's still there. What could that
crazy.
even be? That is the weirdest problem I've ever seen. Um, is that a new? Oh, sorry, is that a new term?
Yeah, are we
Um,
coining a new term? Couplepreneurs.
I think so. I think we could I think we could
Mm,
find something cooler than that. Oh, I don't know. Maybe couplepreneurs, because I kind of like the mompreneur, the dadpreneur,
yeah,
the parentpreneur, pairpreneur.
I don't think that's a thing.
I don't like that one. Yeah,
No.
the couplepreneur, whatever. We can coin it. Um, yeah, her husband gave her headphones, and he's always on her and why she's not using it. Um, but anyway, so your guys explain your podcast a little bit more that you have coming out.
Can we wait for Sydney?
Just a little bit. Just tease it a
All right,
little bit.
all right, all right, all right. Okay, so something that Sydney and I are really excited to just have open, fairly unfiltered conversations about what goes on when you own multiple businesses or are starting a business, and kind of the ebbs and flows, and more so spending time in the middle. Like, I feel like when people talk about the success that they've seen or how their business evolved, I have to sneeze. That's not gonna happen. This show, we're off to a great
We're off
start
to a
this
great
year.
look. Here's the thing: we're setting the bar low, so there's only one way to
Yeah,
go, but
we
up
can only go
in
up.
2025. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so it escaped me. So we wanna really spend time on the middle. Like, let's dig into, like, the day-to-day life and not just say, well, just throwing things out there that I've heard, like, "I had minus $100 in my bank account, and now I'm worth $3,000,000." And you're like, "That's amazing, congratulations, but how the hell did you do it? Like, what happened in the middle? What was going on in your head? How were you
Mhm.
keeping up with your kids or your partner or your business? Like, how the heck did you just keep moving through that?" rather than just saying like, this is the low, this, and now I'm at the high. Let's like
Mhm.
spend the time in life. Like that's where we live for the most part, our day-to-day lives. It's not
Mhm.
all like rainbows and sunshine all of the time. So we
Mhm.
kind of want to break that wall, talk about different experiences that we've both had throughout our careers, throughout building businesses. I'm essentially a stepmom, so being able to lean into that aspect. Sydney's got a couple of little ones. We both work with our partners
Mhm.
and in life and in business, so it's gonna be a lot of, like, real relatable conversations. The occasional F-bomb, maybe more than occasional, we'll see. But just real and raw and getting out there.
And it's fun. It's been fun watching you get excited about this one because you like we've had podcasts before, and that's the other thing that
Mhm,
I kind of like this topic of like personal values affecting brand identity and kind of how you operate and how you
mhm,
make decisions. Because we had to put on a mask, or we thought we had to put on a mask for those other podcasts that
mhm.
we did, like Prim and Proper. You see examples of those that are successful or that have done it before, and you're like, I'll just do exactly that. But that's not you. That's not me. That's not us. That's not going to be our version of success, right? That's
Yeah,
not going to be our roadmap type of thing. So it becomes difficult to keep doing that day in and day out and to be consistent with it and to get really good at it too. Because if you're faking it, then it's not something that you're, especially because
I
it's like
wouldn't.
it's you. It's not that we're faking it,
Yeah.
but it's that you do have to hold back. You do have to put on a bit of a
Yeah,
mask.
for sure.
You do
You
have to
have
put on a
to
bit of
it's almost like well, it's almost like when you're at home, you are probably a little bit more laid back than when we had to show up in offices. We would show up as another version of ourselves, but not necessarily our full self, right? Like you're not going to be walking around the office the same way that you're walking around your house. And I think that there is like you need a little bit of that. But at least I can speak from my personal self. The audience that I was speaking to and the people that I was bringing onto my show, I had to like wildly filter myself and like how I would carry a conversation. And
mm,
I loved learning about the nonprofits and what they were working towards. And I still think it's really important to do your research and understand what's going on in your community and get involved where you can. But it got hard to yeah, it got hard to like not be able to just like carry a normal conversation or like show up as more of myself. And that's what I'm excited about. I'm also scared to do it with Sydney and like I don't want to get into what our first podcast episode is going to be, but we're going to talk a little bit about that because it's also scary as hell to be vulnerable and to talk
mm,
about those things that we're saying. Like, it's not an easy thing to just get out there and talk about and then open yourself up to opinions and comments and all that. But it's also, if something doesn't scare you at least a little bit, then it's probably not worth doing. So
yeah.
I think that's something that I have pushed myself, especially in the last year and a half. Like, I feel like I've consistently put myself in these scarier positions that I probably wouldn't have done before. And it's been also really rewarding. And I've been able to learn a lot more about like who I am. So I want to just keep that going in
Yeah.
2025.
And I'm excited for you to get at least more get comfortable being uncomfortable with it because there's a really great quote from I think it was from The Art of War where strength doesn't come from building the wall, strength comes from being comfortable on the other side of it. So that it's
Mm,
going to be really
I
really
like that.
big, I think for both of you because I know how much Sydney loves the limelight considering she
Not
how are
my
you?
favorite. I'm good now that I can talk. This is why we have to bring so many devices everywhere, because
Yeah,
then we can just
exactly.
download apps and try again. Because apparently the computer is not the device of the day. So here I am.
Beautiful. I don't know how much you heard. I didn't notice when you popped in, but we're kind of talking about. Well, first of all, we were talking about teasing uh,
The
you
podcast.
and Adrina's podcast a little bit, but then also talking a little bit about how like your own personal values affect the way you operate in business, the way you make decisions in business, but also how it affects like like truly it affects your brand identity,
Hmm.
and at
Totally.
least the way you want your brand identity to show up, or the way it naturally starts to evolve into.
I'm a big believer that whoever we are showing up as is going to be how our company is reflected out to the world. And I think a lot of people, and historically, we haven't talked about these topics as much, which I know is going to be one of the focuses of our podcast, talking about both life and work. And I think a lot more people are starting to like blur the boundaries between the two and recognize that actually there aren't boundaries. And I think that that will be really helpful to a lot of different companies to recognize that maybe where they're struggling isn't just processes or marketing, but also how they're doing personally. Because if we're limiting
Mm.
ourselves, then of course our company is going to face similar limitations. So yeah, definitely an interesting topic, and a lot more people seem to be interested in exploring it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and you look at like it's been a thing forever. Is we look at all of our like everyone has their business, you know, their Mount Rushmore of businesses that they kind of look up for. Like you have like Netflixes and Apples and whatever, whoever else. There's tons of other ones. But even and then they kind of compare how they should be running their small business. They're in the first 2 to
Right.
5 years, even the first 2 to 10 years of their business. They're like, I'm going to run it like I'm going to read a book about Netflix. I'm going to run it like Netflix runs their business
Yeah.
now. It's like, okay, they've been in business for 20 plus years. They've had like they've almost went out of business multiple times. But if you look
Right.
at there's a podcast that Mark Randolph did. He's the original founder of Netflix, and they always ask him about culture, like leadership and culture and that kind of stuff. And he kind of rolls his eyes and he's like, look, the culture is just it has everything to do with the founder. It has everything to do with how you lead and how you show up. Everybody wants this like magic gem, you know, that's gonna solve all their problems. But it's you. It's how you show up. It's how you develop your own values. It's how you develop your own way of communicating and making decisions, making effective decisions. It's not it's not like the way you run a meeting. Like
Right. Totally.
it's
There's
not
no
like
like
the
play by play.
yeah, it's not like putting jokes up on a whiteboard every Tuesday. It's not like that's not your
Right.
culture. It's how you show up and how you lead and how you like you really got to lead from the front. Your values. If you pay attention to them, how many people? What do you think the percentage of people is that even know what their values are? Because there's a lot of people that have values, but they don't recognize them.
It's a good question. I have no idea what that percentage would be. I think also we tend to surround ourselves with people who are similar to us. So a lot of people that I know talk about values, but I think the world as a whole, it seems to be becoming more popular to discuss the two, but percentage, I have no idea. Less than more.
Probably so less than half. That's one way to put it. Because even going through like watching people go through the challenge, and it's been so much fun doing the challenge because we can get in front of so many people and see the way they operate, make decisions, and what they value and don't value. And like everybody like we talk about principles. Like I did a keynote in October on principles, and we all have principles. Like we like one thing over the other, or I'm not going to do that because of XYZ past experience. So I'm going to make a different decision. Like we all have principles, we all have those values, but we don't define them. And it's funny, it's weird because if we don't define them and we don't identify them, then we can't either improve them or utilize them more effectively. So we're kind of missing out a lot, especially if you're an entrepreneur, where everything really depends on your ability to make consistent, good decisions.
Right. Yeah,
weird.
it's important. And I think it's also difficult for people because they read all these things about like styles of leadership and the way we should show up. There's a lot of conversation about how women show up and how we're perceived, and the list goes on. And my husband and I, in one of our businesses, were having this conversation with somebody who was like, you guys really need to change and lead like this because we're like very nice, let's just say. We're like, I don't think that we can suddenly wake up tomorrow and be different people. Probably we need to put some steps in place because we are very kind to be more aware of certain things that can't happen, especially because they're restaurants and, you know, that lots of things happen within the hospitality industry. So being aware, having steps in place, but changing the way we show up, probably an impossible ask.
Yeah.
So
Well, it starts with knowing where you are right now. Because if you don't really know where you are right now, you can't take the next step. So then this is where coaches and like a lot of business consultants drive me nuts is they don't identify where you are right now first. Like where is there like where is ground zero? Where is your foundation at?
Yeah.
And then let's build on that. Let's go to the next step of that. But then they don't identify where you're at right now, what type of style you have, what type of leadership processes or whatever types of decisions that you make right now. So then they can, kind of like, okay, let's just change this one thing, or let's just put this process in place. Let's identify some red flag mechanisms. And instead they're just like, no, you need to do this. And then they go way to the other side. They have no idea, like, if you have any idea how to operate that way, or if you do, what the ramifications would be. It's just crazy. Like, this blind advice giving is, I mean, I think it's getting more.
I also,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add, I also think where a lot of it goes wrong is, which is natural too, to want to coach from your personal experience,
Right.
rather than taking into account who is in front of you. What is their personal experience? What is their work history been like? What is their personal journey been like? Because they're not you. And I think if you're in that consultative or coaching space, you have to be able to recognize that you're not talking to you. And you need to figure out like what actually works for them and what's going to help them navigate through these things. Not, hey, well, I did this, so you should do this too. Because it's not one-to-one a lot of times. Like, yes, if you partner up with somebody, like Sydney said, we are often working or attracting people around us who are a little bit more like-minded, but you still have to look at who's in front of you and then shape things for them, I think. And I think that gets lost a lot of times.
Yeah, and that's the like about leadership and coaching. Like, you're not just leading people to, like, if they're at level 0 right now, you're not just leading them to level 1. You're leading them to the possibility that they're reaching level 2, 3, 4, and 5. And a lot of times, if you just this is one thing I had a coach mentor years ago, like over 10 years ago, and he said, and this is probably why I have this like habit that I think it's starting to drive Adrena nuts a little bit when I'm like leading meetings and that.
Yes.
Yeah, when I'm leading meetings and that type of stuff. I won't just tell people kind of what to do. I have this habit of like, what do you guys think? Like, here's where we're at, and this is where we need to go. What's your solution for it?
No. That part's amazing. I don't care that you do that. What drives me nuts is if I'm talking to you one-on-one, that we're getting back to the personal stuff. If I'm talking to you one-on-one and I'm like, I don't know how to navigate this. Yeah, I don't know how to navigate this. And he'll go, but what if you did? And I'm like, dude, that's literally why I'm asking you right now, is because I'm saying I don't know what to do. That's the one that drives me crazy.
I gotta try. Okay. Yeah, I know. I have a habit of that. I have a habit of that.
I do think it's great how you navigate through like working meetings and helping people get to that space. That is awesome. And like a lot of people should take that into how they lead too, because if you're constantly just spitting out the answer to people, they will start to default and rely on you as their leader rather than you helping to coach them to getting there. And then they realize, oh, I can do this. I just need to like dig a little bit deeper or think in a way that I might not have thought before. So that part is amazing. I love that you do that. And it's something that I think a lot of leaders and founders and business owners should lean into. Otherwise, you're building reliance on like on you as the owner and founder if you're constantly just spitting out answers at people. So no, that's great. It's when I have a problem and I'm trying to like actually get help from you and you say, but what if you did know that?
So I will admit though, sometimes I do that just to get around.
I'm sure you do.
But sometimes it works out and then you figure it out so that it's worth it. I thought for sure you were getting annoyed of that, but that's good to know. That's good to know. But you can't, anyways. Okay, whatever. We'll talk about that after. Okay. It's like the whole like leading the horse to water, but then you also like, you have to teach them to find the water themselves, sort of thing. So like the water's over there behind a fence, but you got to figure it is where behind the fence, sort of thing. Yeah. So it's something that I won't like, even if we're on like a time crunch, like I have to identify when to do it and when not to do it. Because then we have an hour meeting and then we took half an hour just like guiding everybody. But I mean, it's you got to pick and choose. But it's definitely something that like my values have, the way they've been formed over the years, have definitely dictated like how I communicate and how I make decisions. But also, I think a lot of it has to do like with communication and leadership, and just like guiding a team. Because also we get better ideas. Like I'm very well aware. That's the other thing with leaders is you have to be really, or running a business, you have to be really well aware that you don't know everything, and
Right.
knowing what you don't know. So I know that if you're a leader, if you're an entrepreneur and you're just telling your team, you're just telling your clients what to do, you're closing them off to only the thing that you just said, not like the plethora of other ideas and other angles that you could be looking at this from. But if you guide them, then the path is wider and you can figure out other ways to accomplish the same thing that you probably wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah, it's great. And we have one of our like key team members in one of our businesses here in Guatemala really struggles with that concept. Like and it's totally cultural, where if Santiago and I say something, that's the final word. So we have to be really careful to like basically never say anything. And if we do, add like 15 caveats, like you're running your role. So like you have to own it.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of conversations, and it's interesting too to think about. And it's not just like I'm in a different country, so that's obviously a massive cultural leap, but even within our own country, we have multiple cultures. So it goes back to like understanding that. And then it makes me think too, like how we tend, like we said, we tend to surround ourselves with people that are similar to ourselves. So then how do we then ensure, and how important it is it to hire people that don't have the same values like that? Like
100%.
we think we should all share values, but should we? Like, is that important, or is it just the right values that we should share? And of course, every company is different. Like at the Hive, it's really important that we have self-starters. Like they can't be relying on anybody else besides themselves. And when we don't hire for that, train wreck. But in other company cultures, that's not necessarily the same. So like what value, how do we know which value of ourselves and our company is the most important to like screen for, and which other ones we should be helping to see like some diversity and differences, and how to manage then all of those different cultures around everybody's personal values, the company's values, your values, a lot.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Inside Out, the Disney movie.
Yeah.
Right, where you have to have like, well, like we talked about
That's
this
a good
before, and
one.
we did it for the Hive. You need like your core values. That's why it's so important to have like core. Like everybody should like, we should agree on these things. Like we should all be striving to be perfect or near perfect on these things. But then as far as like ideas, communicating, you has to work well together, but different styles of communications, even sometimes good to meld together, but just different perspectives, different roadmaps, like different previous, like your life roadmap, like experiences and that type of stuff is really, really important. If you get a bunch of people that are the same mind in a boardroom or on a Zoom meeting trying to solve a problem, you're going to do what I did before and just hit your head against the same wall, different parts of the wall maybe, but same wall.
One thing, I wanted to say something, didn't you? I could see the look. One thing that we haven't talked about, though, we keep throwing out this name, the Hive, the Hive, the Hive. We haven't actually talked about what's happened behind the scenes here. So, Zach, do you want to fill everybody in?
Do you want me alone to fill everybody in on what us three are brewing up?
You can start it. You're so great at announcements. So yeah.
This just in. So actually, it's been a little while now, but we I don't know why we're just choosing now to kind of announce it, I guess. But yeah, here we are. We had to go through a honeymoon phase apparently. But one thing I'll go back to the beginning. So at Summit Chasers Network, when we started this, we had our main vision and mission is to basically, to sum it up, to be able to help as many business owners in North America as possible, and that's even expanded to around the world now a little bit, but in North America as possible. And when you initially start out something like that, like you again, I go back to hitting my head against the wall. Apparently that's my of the day. Is you just try to do it all yourself, and you try to figure out a way that you can do it all yourself. And we spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to figure out how to do it on our own. And we realized really quickly, maybe not quick enough, that you just can't. We just can't, no matter how you kind of structure things, the way that we wanted to make the impact, which is a true impact. It's going to be really difficult, if not impossible, to do it on your own. So we were kind of on, we decided to We need to expand. We need to bring in partners. We need to bring in people who have very similar visions, vision and mission as us, similar principles, swears just as much as we do, and isn't is candid like we are, kind of thing. Again, core values, right? Swear a lot is a core value. It's not. And Sydney, just I don't know. I can't remember. It was. Oh, see, there you go. There's a great example of
Hi.
bringing the family into
I
the business.
don't know where the other parent went. So,
well, at least you're missing a
One
parent and not that. I'd
one
rather be
child
missing the
got-
parent. I'd rather be
Uh-huh.
missing the parent than the kid. So that's fine.
Yes,
For sure.
agreed.
And we met Sydney through a group, Dreamers and Doers, and she was just like, I need help with my business. And we had 2 conversations, and immediately Adriana and I were like, this is the one. And we have a lot of experience on who not to partner with. A lot of experience on that. And yeah, and she does too, which is good. And we were like, this is it. Like, this is kind of what the Hive's doing. I'll let Sydney kind of explain that, what the Hive's doing, the impact it's trying to make, and just the variety in which ways it's willing to solve the problem, which is increasing the chances of, especially like parentpreneurs, couplepreneurs, mompreneurs success in the US, especially since COVID. It's blown up. I said that already. And I was like, this is it. Like what the Hive's doing, who Sydney is, even her husband. Like this is where we need to go. Like this is the type of partnership that we need. And we haven't looked back since we've had the partnership. It's blossomed. I guess that's the right word. And it's turning into something very powerful, that's not out there, at least to the capacity that this is. Because you see a lot of you'll see a lot of these types of businesses where they're whether the business coaches or their consulting groups or whatever it is, and then they say they want to have an impact on businesses and stuff, and you can see it really, really quickly turning into they're just after the money, they're just after getting recognition for their own frameworks and this type of stuff. Where what we're doing is we're creating an environment, we're creating a community where like it's true business success, all the way from how you make decisions, what is a business strategy, how to put a bright business strategy together based on your strengths, your personal values, your product and service, its strengths, the market strengths. And then not only that, do we point in the right direction, we also execute for you. So it's a pretty powerful thing that we're doing. And it was kind of a match made in heaven. But I'll let Sydney kind of talk on it from her perspective. Maybe it's completely different. Maybe she hates us. I don't know.
Definitely not. No, it's interesting for sure, because the Hive is 10 years old, and so it's gone through many phases. And it was in the beginning, it was something totally different, and then at some point I kept starting businesses with myself, family, husband, and it became this growth engine for the other companies that I had this ability to have, like you were saying at the beginning, have my cake and eat it too in some insane capacity. And at some point I realized, like, okay, this has been amazing for me to be able to run and own many businesses and still manage to have some semblance of like a normal personal life, to see my kids and like whatever that means. And I really wanted to see other people have that experience, especially like you guys were touching on with the pandemic. So many more women in particular were starting businesses, staying at home. They still had the kids. We can't even probably count how many calls we've had where like we're talking to the business founder and like they're either serving ice cream, we've done that, or because they have an ice cream shop, or their kids join the call, or whatever it might be. Like life happens, right? And especially if you're working at home, like we're seeing life happen. And so we really wanted to turn this into something that would grow other people's businesses. And because we're all founders, we didn't just like start an agency, and there's nothing wrong with agencies. There are many great agencies out there, but it's that perspective of like, no, we know what it takes to start a business with nothing and turn it into something. And here are the steps that you need to take. And we get so involved in people's businesses, not from like even necessarily a time standpoint, but just, okay, like we've seen this before, like we know where you are, we know what it feels like, and here are the steps you need to take. You need to look at this holistically if you want to go where you're going. And then yes, like Zach was saying, we help with the strategy, and then we help with the execution of that strategy, and everything is values driven. So we don't want to just like do social
Do
posting,
busy
for
work.
example. Right. Never. Like people will ask us to do things and we're like, like, I don't think that you're ready to start marketing because your operations is X, Y,
Mhm.
or Z. So like
Mm.
really making sure they're set up for success, because at the end of the day, we only grow at the Hive if they're also succeeding. So
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
very short lived, and I think that's something that like certain agencies, and I'm just using that as a catch-all, business code, whatever you want to say, like other businesses who help people in different ways haven't quite figured out, is like sometimes they just end up doing the same formula, but is it really working? And then those customers eventually are going to realize it's not working if they're not setting up the foundations correctly and like tracking everything they do and making sure that every single move they're making is going somewhere. Those
Yeah.
people are going to leave. And that's one thing at the Hive, like people, they start and they don't leave. Like they're with us until they're
Yep.
like, oh, like maybe I need to actually start hiring my own team members now. And then they
Mhm.
still use us. So I think, that speaks for itself in a lot of ways. But no, it's been incredible to partner with you guys. I mean, you guys are the reason that we've been able to take it from like a business that was supporting my businesses and my lifestyle to something that now is helping so many different entrepreneurs do so many different things so much better than they were before. It's been an
Mm.
extremely rewarding partnership, I think, very, very quickly. And I'm very excited to see
Yeah.
what happens this year.
Mhm. Yeah, it's gonna be a big year,
Okay.
and I'll be
Yeah,
candid
for
about the
sure.
whole agencies thing. They're trash. A lot of them are trash. It is what it is.
Unfortunately, I've
Because
had, yeah.
you look at some of these like performance marketing agencies and whatever agencies, like they'll convince you
Promise me the
that
world.
the problem
Yeah.
that they solve is the problem that you need solved. It's going to be the thing that's going to help you. Like, oh no, you need your cold email
Uh-huh.
outreach because that's going to make the big difference. And we have this thing that
It's
we started.
not holistic.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Uh-huh. It's just one.
Or oh, you need to get on LinkedIn and you need to post 18 times a day, and then you need to do this thing, and you need to outreach to people and do this and that kind of thing. And even if it's totally against their values, totally against their strengths, totally
Mm-hmm.
against where their business should be going, but it's just because it's what they do and what they're good at, they're going to convince you otherwise. And that, like, we do the exact opposite. Like
Uh-huh.
we put you through the strategy first to like, is this what you should be focusing on? Is that like where should you be focusing on? Like, where is your customer? What do they care about? What type of strengths do you have in comparison to your competitors? Let's do a competitor analysis. And then
Mm-hmm.
we'll really see how you can stick out. Let's cater your messaging to that. That's your messaging. Okay, where's that messaging going to be most powerful at? Okay, now let's come up with like some KMO KSOs to like set some goals and some actionable objectives that you can accomplish. And most of the time, the way we have the Hive set up is like we could execute on most of those things based on what is best for your
Mm-hmm.
business, not just I did really good on LinkedIn one
How
year, so now I'm selling you
right.
this thing.
It's like the healthcare system. Who wants to say, okay, I have like this issue over here, and like have the doctors be like, okay, let's just pretend you're just an arm. Let's just look at the arm. No, it's an entire body. So like we should
Hmm.
probably look at what's happening with the entire body. You're not just an arm. So
Yeah.
like we shouldn't just and like that's essentially what it's boiled down to in a lot of ways, and people are trying to push back on that. It's the same thing for business. Like you're not just marketing, you're not just LinkedIn,
Mhm.
like you're an entire business, which includes you, the founder, and
Yeah.
whatever you have going on in your life. And so I think that's really, really, really important, and hopefully becomes a part of more conversations. And if like I've mostly had bad experiences with agencies, I'm sure that there are some good ones out there, and probably the
Yeah.
ones that are doing a good job aren't just looking at the arm, they're looking at the entire
Mhm.
body and all the things that need to happen. And if they can't do it, hopefully suggesting that they should be considering other things, because marketing when you don't even have your logistics in place is a disaster. So it's interesting how humans like to compartmentalize things, and like the reality of life is nothing can truly be compartmentalized. Like
Yeah.
everything has its connection to something else, and we need to the market as a whole, like considering that. Even like one of our joint clients went through the challenge and realized that they weren't even charging their customers the right amount. So if they would have kept
Mm.
marketing, they just would have been spinning their wheels. They were exhausted when they started it. And so it's, you have to look at every single piece and
Mhm.
figure out what's not working. You want to
Yeah.
get to the root, not just like stick a band-aid on your heart. If you're having heart pain, you should probably try to figure out what's going on in there. So
Maybe. Yeah.
maybe
Maybe.
One
good
other
idea.
one other thing that I would add to that too is the reason why we keep talking about the challenge and going through that and getting
Uh,
really clear, and then the hive can execute is, but the one thing I'll say that I think is also different is we're incredibly candid if we're not the one that you need
aha.
right now. Like we will say this is not what you need, and through the challenge a lot of times they'll come to the realization of what they need because they've got the tools, they've gone through the exercises,
Mhm.
and then when we do our final one on, not our final, but when we do that, like that one-on-one with them to go through everything, that's where they have a really clear idea of what their need is. And if it's not Summit Chasers or the Hive, we have a lot of people within our network that we're also like, okay, this is perfect for your next step. Maybe you need like a messaging expert to refine what you're
Mhm.
doing. And then once that's done, then come chat with us because now we can help you execute on the overall messaging strategy. So we're really, really candid and um, and honest when it comes to saying like, yes, we can help you, and yes, you'll see a lift in your business, or we have somebody amazing that we work with.
Mhm.
We'll connect you with them, and then let's chat when the time is right for us. So that I think is also a little bit unusual. I don't know how many agencies or consultants are doing that. I feel like they're like, oh no, I can fix your problem 100%. Spend your money with me. And we're
Mhm.
like,
I'll figure it out.
if we're not it, we're going to tell you.
Well, they
Which
have
we
too much of
just
like
did,
that scarcity mindset, like right, like if I lose you, like
Yeah.
I'm never gonna get a client again, sort of thing, and they have that feeling,
Yeah.
or they think that everybody's their competitor, type of thing, and it's just not the case.
Yeah,
Um,
it goes to that long-term thinking where like if you can truly solve somebody's problem, they'll stick with you forever. And how much more valuable is that than like
Mhm.
kind of solving a piece of somebody's problem for like a few months, but then they're still looking for the
mhm,
solution. And then are they going to go tell all of their friends to try you out? Definitely not.
yeah,
Whereas the one client we
Yeah.
told, this is not like, we're not right for you. Like, she
Yeah.
was like, I will definitely tell people that you guys exist if I think they're
Yeah.
right. Versus if we had tried, I'm sure she would have
Mm.
left, which I have tried before in the past. I can think of two clients that I probably should have said no to, mainly because of their budget. And I tried it anyways, and they were both very disappointed at the end. So what did that do
Mhm.
yeah,
for me or the hive or them? Nothing. Sometimes we
Yeah.
have to learn that the hard way, but it's that long term like thinking that we have to do for our clients in order for us. Like it's one holistic ecosystem here.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
We need to put more. They need to put more value on like long term relationships, because
mhm.
that could be two referrals. That could be just like a nice comment
Referrals
on your
are,
post.
yeah,
It could be like
all
it's a
very
lot of
important.
stuff. It's huge. It's huge, huge, huge. But we got, anyways. We could talk about this all day. I'm sure you guys will talk about it a lot more on your podcast as well. Um, when you had your kids, because you were an entrepreneur before you had kids. You're still an entrepreneur now, obviously. Other than the time and the screaming on Zoom videos, and by the way, and the random visits, which is always
Aha,
welcome, by the
right.
way. How, how has the way you do business? How has that changed since you've had kids?
Oh, it's so different. It's so different. And I wasn't even like, I've told Audrina this. I did not want children actually. So it wasn't like this like goal of mine that I was like, I'm going to figure out how to work this in. It was like, oh, we're doing this now. All right. So we're going to work this in. And at the time, Santina, it was a pandemic. So we had to close all of our businesses. And then I decided to restart the Hive, which I wasn't really running. So it was also a very weird time. I was living in New York City before, and the pandemic, I was, I mean, let's say trapped here in Guatemala. Like it was very hard to get out. Um, and which was great. I mean, who wanted to be in New York City in the pandemic? So definitely
Yeah.
not complaining. And it was just like, yeah, that the pandemic, having to shut down all of our businesses, restarting a business, having to take a job so that I could restart this business, like it was insane. And then at the heart of it, for women specifically, like our biology immediately shifts. And my pregnancies were also terrible. So like it was just a really weird time. And then this thing comes and you're like, oh, my biology, like I'll be in calls and like I see the child and I'm like, "Eh." Like my
Yeah.
sense of like what's important is like my brain just immediately I'm like, I don't even know what we are talking about anymore because they just like came into the sight of vision.
Mhm.
And so yes, like naturally my brain definitely reprioritized things. And I talked to a few female founders before, and they said the most interesting thing is that you will suddenly become, and I was already pretty efficient before, but like you will suddenly become so much more efficient than you ever were. Like all of a sudden your brain will know how to prioritize your work in a way that's totally different. I've talked to like it's not that simple, and that's one of the things we'll dig deeper in the podcast. We won't just like skate over these like,
Mhm.
ooh, it was like we just prioritize things better. No, it was a fucking challenge. Oops, are we supposed to cuss on this? I don't know.
Yes, we can.
Anyways, it's all right,
It's
cool.
fine.
It's extremely challenging to like figure out how to do that, and it took me when my first child was born. I had to go back to work because we were in the States and my husband was trying to get his green card, so he couldn't work. And so he was the primary caregiver, and it nearly killed me because I wanted to be with our son. And it happens the way it does. But in that moment I realized like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do things the way I want to do them. And by the time the second was born, I did like, and I had already been working on this before because I was working like a maniac, not sleeping, like just putting way too much into my work. So I wasn't figuring out even before how to reduce my time and focus on what was the most important and not everything. And yeah, I think that was like the boost that I needed to be like, absolutely not. Like, we're not going to continue another year of me not being able to like spend time waking hours with my child. I am going to figure out how to do this. And so I did. And the results for my businesses have been tenfold because we can attend every conference. We can do like every single thing that they say to do for business on the internet or through coach and whatever it is that we're looking at. But really what moves the needle for our businesses, it's just a few simple things repeated over and over again.
Mhm.
And so I think that was probably the most impressive difference that I saw was like, I don't need to do it. This is all just like irrelevant stuff that's on my
Mhm.
list of things to do because somebody put it on there or it was on there before. And now like really looking at what drives value, which in turn is what we've been able to do for our clients. And since I've had my both of the children now at this point, I feel like I can even look at other people's businesses much easier and be like, scratch all of that. Like this whole section you have over here
Yeah.
of like things to do, like irrelevant. It's like not going to help your business at all. These three things will, which I know is what you guys also do in the challenge. And so and I think other people get there in different ways. But for me, that was it. Before kids, I was just doing everything. And after kids, I was doing the right things. And
Mhm.
yeah, like obviously the businesses grow at a
Mhm.
healthier rate and healthier ways. And they're all more successful than they were
Mhm.
before, which is insane because I'm working like half the time that
Mhm.
I was before.
Yeah.
So
I can definitely attest to the efficiency thing. Like
yeah,
100%.
it's real.
And just your like and some it's just like humans are cool because we adapt pretty quickly when we let ourselves.
Mhm.
Like even like I have two examples of this. Adrena, you're well aware of one of them. But when Brinley was probably she's my oldest. She was I don't even think she was a year old yet. I was single parenting for most of the time, and I was running an online like I was growing and running an online fitness and supplement brand. And when I had her, it was not a minute was wasted. It was clockwork.
Mhm.
Like we woke up at 7, we hung out and had breakfast, we did our thing, and I took her to. I would work a little bit while she zoomed around in this like walker thing,
Mhm.
just enough to get things set up. Then I would get ready. We'd go to the gym. She'd hang out at the little play place at the gym where they had like their childcare thing for like
Uh-huh.
an hour and a half. Come home, we would both eat. She'd be down for the count for like 2 hours, 3 hours, and I would work like I was so efficient. Like that 2 or 3 hours was I would
Mhm.
do as much as I would usually do in like 10. And
Uh-huh.
just because I had to, just the way I had it set up. And because I knew like she was like we were both like clockwork, and then she would wake up, we'd both go eat again, we'd hang out for a little while, we'd play. We go to the playground or something. We go to like indoor playgrounds. It's Vegas. It was super hot. We go to like indoor playgrounds, and then come home, have dinner, and then she was pretty much out. We'd watch a show for a bit. I'd give her a warm bottle, and she was like down for the count, like 8 o'clock, 8:01, and then she'd go to bed, and I'd work for like 2 more hours, and then I'd have some time to chill out, go to bed, and like it was like every minute, like it was planned. It was so planned. And the minute, like if I had a week or a few days where I didn't have her, that was just like absolutely like I'll sleep in another hour, or like that is so interesting. And then the other, when we were in the trailer, and we had 2 kids, 4 dogs, in a 22-foot trailer traveling the country, and how efficient we had to be with our time and with like getting the kids ready, and the time that we had on the business type of thing was like, that was like, I'll let Adrina speak to that a little bit, but that was wild. But like the circumstances that you put yourself in has huge impact on like what you find out that you're capable of, especially when it comes to being efficient.
Yeah,
for sure. I think the one day that stands out, we were at somebody's property in, what state was that? I don't remember which state we were in, at the tiny farm.
Oh,
with
that's
the
Colorado.
goats, and we were in Colorado, and we had actually a good amount of meetings, and it was either like I was on a meeting or Zach was, and we were just like tag teaming the kids perfectly. Like we just knew, okay, we have like 5 minutes before this meeting, I'm going to take them outside to go play with like goats and cows and play hide and seek in a barn. And then and then Zach would show up like a few minutes before I had my next meeting, and we would just like switch back and forth. But we had to be so on it with like entertainment plus getting the work done, and navigating that in a really small space with that many heartbeats was not like an easy feat, but we got through it. And those were actually some of like the most efficient days I think we had.
Oh yeah,
I'd say
100%. And you get really good at like, I don't want to say compartmentalizing, maybe not the right word, but like switching hats really quickly, switching masks really quickly. It's like, I gotta go be a dick on this call right now and like whip somebody into shape, and then I gotta come out and be like playing hide and seek in a barn or with goats or whatever it is. And then it's also like, from my perspective too, like as like being like, especially like the dad, and we're like sometimes we're like, we parked on the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. Like it wasn't like the most comfortable place to have your at the time 6 and 4-year-old type of thing, especially the people on the property. Like there's bears out here, and then I had to like make sure that like I had to set an alarm every hour and a half during the night to make sure that like the generator was still running and it had gas in it and there's nothing like around, sort of thing. So you get really good at like being able to switch on, switch off, or switch the hats really quickly. But before we stop, we talked a lot, and I knew that this was going to happen. It's the first time we did this in a while, and that's fine. We can splice this up. But we had some questions. I had some questions from previous podcasts, and one new question, especially because we were talking about like parents, parent entrepreneurs juggling kind of multiple lives. So we'll run through 2 of them. This is one question that we got. This is the one I got a while ago. I was talking about getting my kids more involved in the business, but how can I involve my children in my business in a way that is meaningful and educational for them? Because that's one thing that I guess fantasize a bit about, but is like, they learn a lot from school and stuff, but like, how can I bring them in a way that's going to help them get like real world experience, real world kind of education, so to speak. But I'm gonna let one of you take this away.
So I mean, mine are 2 and 3. So we just had them carry. We at our restaurant, they had to put. We have a firewood event, so they helped us carry the firewood. Like I think it's like any little thing for them. Obviously, they can't like go take an order at a table, or participate in strategy for somebody at the Hive. You're gonna have to ask Papa. But like whatever they can do, I think, especially at a younger age, it's just about the little things. Like them contributing makes them feel like they're a part of it. And I know my parents are entrepreneurs, and so for us, what we did growing up And I definitely, like, my dad was a developer, so I went to a lot of job sites with him and saw how he managed people and all of that. Like, just observing can be a very educational and important part of things. And we always bring our kids to the restaurant. They, like, I try to explain to them that I work on the computer, although, you know, 2 and 3, they might not understand what I'm doing if I'm watching a movie or actually doing something productive. But my parents involved us in a lot of conversations about money specifically. And I think, Audrina, you and I were talking about this the other day, where just that piece, or who was it? Just that piece alone is so critical, because people, like, if you think about it, in our education system, we talk about math, but we don't talk about finance. Not everybody even goes to college and gets a degree. And even in college, I took one finance class. So, like, and I studied, my minor was business. So how is, right? Like, and even that was about business finance. It's not about like the practical things that we need to save for, like paying rent and like paying bills and how to manage money. Like, our restaurants are very, very seasonal. So there's like 4 months on, and the rest of the year is very slow. So, like, how do we manage that? Or as an entrepreneur, sometimes, so one fall I was having a conversation with a client and a friend about managing money like that, especially when you're getting started. So there are lots of like little and big things that kids can do within our businesses. But I think one of the like best things that we can do, and this can happen at home and offline, is just talk about like the decision making process and about like money in general, how to manage that and like make decisions around that. And when kids hear us talk about like real life decisions, even at a young age, I feel like it prepares them for so much more than just like the typical, like, how was your day? It was good. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, today was great. I closed a client. What does that mean? It means that like, I'm going to do more work. Here's the work I'm going to do, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just the conversations are critical.
Yeah.
And another really good thing that my parents did was, we were really little when we started doing this. So like, if we did something, they would sometimes write us a check, and it was a fake check, and we would go put it in like a little box, or they would give us like fake money. And so we like literally simulated what it was like to like have and manage and save money, and then how to buy things with that money. They took us to buy stocks. I can't remember how old I was. And then they made us participate in like purchasing our car. So we had to contribute, like, I think it was like a quarter or something like that. And so these little like real life experiments can also be really, really, really important. But I think
I think that
endless
it's
opportunity.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it's really important, and something that actually, Sydney, just note for us that we should spend time on, which I think we naturally would have, but also on the flip side of that, involving them is so incredibly important. But then how navigating, like, you're at home, you're with them. Like, what happens if they're sick, but you still have to work, and then balancing like not wanting to push them off because you have to get stuff done, but still letting them know, like, I love you, I'm here for you, but I do have to focus right now. So I think that that's a whole topic. One thing that I would love to be able to do, and I can't remember where I heard this, but I think this kind of goes along with like the real life experiences with involving and purchasing a car or whatever it might be. I would, in a perfect world, love to be able to say, like, they get a car, like, we'll pay for the car, but telling them, you're going to pay what, maybe it's like $200 a month or $300 a month once they're 16, and if they're working, but you're really putting that money aside. And then when they hit a certain age, maybe they're 25 years old, you now give them that money back as a way to like set them up so that they don't come into a lot of debt. So I think that there's some really cool things that you can do with helping them understand responsibility and like, take care of this. This is your car, but really you're kind of nesting that money. If you're in a situation where you can do that, you're kind of nesting that money for them to give it back, and hopefully maybe help them invest, or it could be a down payment for a house or whatever it might be. So I think that there's some really cool ways to involve them. And I think it's super important to identify those and then start doing those things like as young as possible, really. And I think you had an exceptional childhood with like having your parents talk about those things, because that's also not something that you hear of all the time. So I think that is huge in helping them navigate life, because there's a lot of, I was on Easy Street for a long time, and when things have flipped, it's hard to then process when you're at a later age,
Right.
having not experienced some of these things. So yeah, it's an interesting balance and definitely something that I've learned along the way of how I would want to um, share some of that knowledge and that insight with kids when they're smaller to
Right.
help
And
them.
that's such an interesting point on like the boundaries, because I actually find it way easier to involve them than to set those
Mhm.
boundaries to be like,
Mhm.
I, and it's like it feels natural for me because when I'm working, like I don't have a focus problem. Like the house could be burning
Mhm.
down and I could be in it and I could still be working. So like I get so hyper focused that I'm like, leave me alone. Like, not that I'm ever like aggressive or whatever, but I'm just like, ugh, like to stop and take the time to be like, hey, like let me explain what's happening here and like how you're impacting this for me or
Mhm.
whatever it might be. Like that there was a brief flutter here where my 3-year-old picked up pepper spray and was running around the restaurant while I'm trying to pay attention to you guys, and then picked up my headphones and was like actually joining the call with you guys. So there are these moments where it's like, okay, like I need to actually pause what I'm doing and like explain and try to set those boundaries. And we should definitely dig into that on the call because our
Yeah.
podcast, because I think that's so much more challenging actually to do that gracefully
Yeah.
in a way that I don't then feel like guilty later, or where I'm like, yeah, but I
Right.
set my schedule and like my schedule is this and now you're like suddenly having a hard time and I need to adjust my schedule. And especially for our team members, I've noticed, it might even be easier for us to say as the business owner because essentially I can make my own decisions. But
Mhm.
I think for some of our mom contractors, that's really tough for them to know their own boundaries too, because they're actually on the clock for somebody else and they've committed in a way that's
Yeah.
different to the way we've committed. And then how do they balance that? Because,
Mhm.
there's always something with kids, there's always something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
My 2 cents is fairly straightforward. I think it kind of goes along the lines with like involve them. Just don't hide things from them. Like if
Right.
you're like we think that we're protecting them, and then like to Adrina's point, we in the long term we're just sheltering them, and then when life does hit them, it hits them a lot harder. And then when
Mhm.
those when things aren't as straightforward, it's harder for them to kind of navigate those things. So just not hiding it from them. Like if you're having a bad day and you're upset about
Huh.
something, or and they know when you're stressed, like they know they're very intuitive. They know when they're stressed.
They
Yeah.
always
And
know,
then just
yeah.
like explain it to them. Like I thought I was going to close a client today, and we ended up not. And they're like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, well, it means that there's usually when we say losing a client, it means that we're not going to get as much money this month, so we have to budget a little bit more. So you're not going to
Mhm.
get the toy Bumblebee I promised you, or whatever. It's that type of thing. Like just being really like honest to a certain point, obviously with them, honest to the like to where like a 7-year-old would get it,
Right.
type of thing.
Mhm.
But I got to the point where at one point with Brinley, or I can't remember if it was Brinley or Mason, but they're like, "Did you get a client today? Like, did you win today, or did you get it today?" Type of thing. And like they start to get those types of things, right? And then they see the ups and downs, and then they start to like, okay, when things are going good, that means that like we can go out to eat. That means that we can do these types of things. But when they aren't, we got to be careful. So we got like just that type of stuff. Just get them
Huh?
involved and just be
Which is
honest with them.
life.
Don't hide. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Just don't hide stuff from them. I think is the big one. Like you obviously don't tell them everything. You don't hide
Hmm.
like the obvious stuff from them. Like they know when you're upset. They know when you're stressed. They know when you've been working a little bit more, right? And like tell them why. Tell them
And I
why.
think we often will, like, I've noticed this even fighting with my spouse, let's say, where like they'll see the fight or they'll see when I'm upset, but sometimes they forget to then like reconcile with my spouse in front of them. Like they might see us
Yeah.
fight in front of them
Mm.
and then later we reconcile. But like that part's the most important part for them to see. And same
Yeah.
Yeah.
with business, where like if I'm having a bad day, it's probably obvious to them. So I talk about it. But then if I'm having a really good day, I should also be sharing that. And I
Mhm.
think that sometimes is a little bit harder to remember because our brains are wired to focus more on the negative so that
Yeah.
we survive historically. I wish that would go away now that we're not like fighting saber-toothed
I feel like we're
tigers,
still going to
but
need it at some point. But yeah.
yes. But yeah, like focusing on like that good stuff too, so that they
Yeah.
recognize. But yes, that's life. And I think the most important skill that we can give anybody is that resilience where they understand that nothing's perfect and also nothing's terrible. We've had conversations recently where sometimes it can feel like it's like when you're in the middle of a challenge, it's going to stay challenging for forever. Like you can't see your way out of it. Inevitably, something's going to change. So, like,
Yeah.
also showing them the ebbs and flows of life and that they can always bounce back and something will always change is
Yeah, and
what a
celebrate
skill.
with them. Like celebrate. Like if you close a big
Mhm.
client, like tell them and celebrate with
Uh-huh.
them. Get them excited about it, right? I like.
Yeah.
All right, one more because we can talk about this stuff for forever. This will be a fun. This we just talked about boundaries. Actually, how do I set and stick to clear
Yeah.
boundaries between work hours and family time? I've tried the whole schedule thing. No matter, no work at the dinner table, but it always creeps in. And I think it goes right into. We can probably skim through this one pretty quickly. I think it goes back to just
Mhm.
like what we just said, having those honest conversations with them. Like if it does creep in at the dinner table and it is actually something that you need to take care of right now, first of all, differentiate between those two things.
Right.
Tell them about it. Like this is the realities of how I got you that toy car. Like this is what it
Yeah.
this is what it takes sometimes, like
Mhm.
I'll be right back and I'll tell you all about it, how it goes. Hopefully it goes well, wish me luck, sort of thing. Like but
Mhm.
but it is like differentiate between what is something that
Right.
should take your attention away, and if it's something that ideally shouldn't take your attention away, is it that you should have just handed it to somebody else, or is there's usually an underlying problem? It's like there's like an
Mhm.
operational thing of like why this stuff keeps coming onto your plate. And
Uh-huh. And
Sydney probably
also,
knows that better than a lot.
like the schedule thing, I feel like people do that. Like, I've tried the schedule, but like, what schedule? How many schedules did you try? How long did you try for? Like, it's not just like in business, it's not just like one little thing and like, oops, we're done. Like, that's
Mm,
it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I tried a schedule. Last year I tried multiple schedules, and the schedule that works the best for me is working mornings, literally putting my phone on silent in the afternoons, like do not disturb, like sleep mode. You cannot contact me unless it's like you guys or a handful of people can contact me, but I don't get any other notifications because our brains are difficult and it's like squirrels with shiny things. Like we're going to hear the
mm,
notification and Pavlov's dog, like we're going to start drooling. So
Mhm.
to like shut down those notifications helps. And then we actually hired a nanny to come back at night. And now I work again at night because I was finding that in the original schedule I attempted, I was like trying to squeeze everything in the afternoon because there was no more help until the next day. Well,
Mhm.
bedtime's my least favorite time at the house anyways. So like
mm,
better that I can stay focused on them for a few hours, like completely focused on them, do whatever we want to do, and then go back to work in the evening and have the support I need, which of course is easy to get here in Guatemala. But still, it's not that's not the point. It's more like keep trying different schedules and keep trying different methods and then go back like you were saying to the root cause. My root cause of paying attention to my phone when I was supposed to be with them was the fact that I couldn't get all my work done in the morning and there was nobody
Mhm.
to help me at night, and then by the time one of ours doesn't sleep, so like I'm exhausted. It's like 9 p.m. by the time we finally get him down, and then who wants to start work at 9 p.m. when I'm exhausted? I don't. So then the whole cycle starts over again.
mm,
So making that small shift was perfect. And then also, my parents have said this because they also work together. And they were like, we have date night, so we can't talk about our kids or about work. I'm like, that sounds nice. But for us, that didn't work. Like, we like talking
Mhm.
about work and we
mm.
like talking about our
Yeah.
kids. So it's just like, we don't have that same boundary. It's not bad to talk about work, but to the conversation before, what is it about work that you're talking about? Like, are you actually handling work at the dinner table? Or are you just having a nice conversation about what's happening? Maybe that's not even a
Yeah.
boundary you need to set to like not talk
Yeah,
about work. So,
Yeah.
but it's
yeah.
it's an
Everybody's
endless
so different.
process.
Yeah.
And every phase with your kids change, like you'll probably have to readjust. There
Oh
might
yeah.
be a point
Yeah.
where skipping bedtime is like no longer an option for me. So
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
never
Yeah.
ending.
Once you think you have like this, like them figured out, like they change, like they change. They
Exactly.
just sort of grown up, but it's really interesting. Um,
I think
but
that something, Zach, that you say quite a bit is like you can be married to the vision, but not to how you get there. And I think it's the same thing with the schedules. Like, if you have to try a bunch, you find one that fits, you're gonna have to change that at some
Yep.
point, depending on the season that you're in within your business. So it's like,
Mhm.
don't be married to just one way, be married to the overall goal, to the overall vision, but then let how you get there kind of flex when you need it to and adjust when you need it to. Like once kids are in school, Sydney, it's going to be so much easier for you to just have that time. But right now, that's not an option. So you've got to set it up to where it's morning and then you come back in the evening. And I
Mhm.
think just, yeah, getting away from the mindset of like, this is my schedule. I have to stick to it. It has to be like this all of the
Mhm.
time. And this is what's going to carry me through is completely unrealistic. And then you're going to get frustrated that you're not able to keep that schedule. So just going into it with like an adaptable mindset of like, this is
Yes.
great for the season I'm in right now, but we're going to have to see if things start getting rocky. Okay, now how do I need to switch my schedule based on like the needs of my kids or my business or my partner so that I can now settle into this new routine. But you gotta just ebb and flow with it. Like being an entrepreneur is not straightforward. It's not for
Yes.
somebody who wants like consistent structure and I just work 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever it might be. Like that's not the realities of this. So you have to be more flexible.
Yeah,
Very well
not
said.
at all. And like I was talking about that schedule I had with my daughter, where it was like we would get up, I'd work a little
Mhm.
bit in the morning, I'd get her up, we'd have breakfast, and we'd go to the gym and whatever. It was like amazing for a few months, and then it like
Mhm.
even then she turned one, and then
Uh-huh.
that got flipped, and then it was like no, she's crazy in the morning, so I need to like
Uh-huh.
wake up a little bit earlier, get my stuff ready, and then I got to maybe do the gym in the afternoon sort of thing with her. But I got like I have to be with her now, kind of in the mornings, sort of
Mhm.
thing. But like you always have to be, like Adrena said, you can't be married to one way of doing things. You got to always be testing, always be trying new things, and being okay with that. Like we're adaptable, right? Let's do one more because I think that what we're gonna do, I'm gonna cut this part out, but I think we're gonna cut it up and we're gonna put it each of these questions separately. Um, on our community and that kind of stuff. Anyways, next one. How do I stay productive when kids' schedules and emergencies can completely screw my day up? They seem to happen more as things copy and paste
Mhm.
wasn't good as things pick up with work.
I think it's kind of the same answer. Like it's just
Yeah.
also life. Like, I mean, who I didn't see the pandemic coming, and that
Hmm.
completely wrecked all of my plans. My life flipped on its head. So I think with anything in life, it goes back to that flexibility. And I remember somebody telling me I did all these interviews when I was in my MBA, and I did a few with like female founders who were also moms. And it's about like I remember them talking about working late at night, and I was like, ugh, like that doesn't sound like what I want to do, which I was always working late at night anyways. But I guess having somebody else tell me that I would have to felt different. And it's just the nature of the beast. Like if your kid is sick, then you're just gonna have to stay up later. And we've had entire periods of the last 4 years with our kids where 3 years um where like we just didn't sleep. Like that was just we had to choose between work, family, and sleeping was the only thing we could give up, and we just did. So it sounds terrible, but like we were saying, everything's a phase. It's
Mm,
normally pretty short lived. And if you can't, I have a lot of friends who can't get help in the States with where they are with their businesses. It's not the same as living here in Guatemala where I could hire like 3 nannies if I wanted to and have a rotating schedule around the clock, which I don't, but it's really easy to do. Like the reality of life is dependent on a lot of choices that we make. And so what do you want to keep doing what you're doing with your business? Do you want to scale it back? There are times where we've done less because we wanted to do more with our kids. Like I wouldn't have brought you guys on as partners 2 years ago. I wouldn't have been able to give this the focus that I wanted to grow it at that time
mm,
in my life. So it's just, I mean, it's ebb and flow, give and take. If there are emergencies and things happening with your kids, you might just have to give up something else
mm.
that you care less about.
Yeah.
Sounds
Sounds like
lame,
they should
but
hire the Hive.
it
Sounds like they
does
should hire
sound
the
like they
Hive.
hired.
Yeah.
That's the real
Sounds like they
solution
should.
for anybody who's listening is just to hire us.
Just
Take care
just
of it.
hire us. How's that for a pitch? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
there's a few things here. Like if you feel like you're getting pulled away so much more, it sounds like as your business grows, you're trying to expand your workload with it, which it shouldn't be. The workload shouldn't get more; it should get more focused as the founder. So it's bringing on the right people to be able to delegate to, putting in the right processes to delegate. And when things do come up in the business, there's somebody who, like, you have a number 2 or number 3 that you can pass those types of things off to, or it only gets to you if it's an absolute like dumpster fire type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be the one. Look at your business. Look how things are operated. Are you the bottleneck? Are you the one that can solve most of the problems? If so, you need to set up, either bring in somebody who can, train somebody who's currently understaffed that can, or put in the processes, or like you said, pull back. If that's not the type of business you want to run, that's the other thing too. As a parent, you got to be honest with what the type of business that you want. Do you want an empire, or do you want a lifestyle business? That's something that we ask clients like right away. Do you want an empire business, or are you just wanting a lifestyle business, something that will give you time, flexibility, and all that kind of good stuff? Or are you like, you want to take over? And it's pretty funny. Like, it's pretty 50-50 on those answers. But because a lot of people aren't, they think that they should, like, this is what businesses do. They just grow, right? That's what we should do. It's like, not really. They can grow in different ways. Sort of thing. So they first of all, you get businesses that they just don't want. So you got to look at how your business is growing. Is it growing in a way that you want it to? And then the other one is too, you'd be really surprised what you can accomplish in an hour when you're focused and everything's turned off. Like, how much time, like just sit down for an hour and work, and then really pay attention to how much time do you end up getting distracted on your phone? How much time do you end up getting distracted just trying to figure something out where it could be passed off to like a later thing or delegated to somebody else? Like, how much do you actually accomplish in an hour? Like, if you only have 2 hours a day where you can work, is it focused 2 hours, or is it kind of like how what's the country, they only do like 6-hour, 4-hour work days? Or they did all those studies where, like, if you have 4 hours of concentrated time,
right,
and they're not screwing around talking to people at the water cooler and all this kind of stuff, they get more done in the 4 hours than most people do in Western culture in 8. Right. Like, you can get a lot done in 2 hours. So pay attention to how efficient you actually are being with, even if it's half an hour at a time, how efficient are you actually being? And pay attention to that, because you'd be really surprised what you can and how much time you do waste and what you can get done in shorter periods of time.
Yeah. And I think, like, writing your goals down is really important. If you feel like you're off track and you can't afford 3 nannies in Guatemala, or you can't afford to hire the Hive, or you can't afford to make different lifestyle changes, you can't reduce your salary or whatever it might be to hire somebody else, or whatever, write down your goal. And I like to use I used to use the Eisenhower box all the time, where I would write down like what was important and what was critical and what, right, like, just fill that out. And whenever I was really struggling to focus and I had very limited time, I would do that with my goal at the top, so that I was just clear on what absolutely needed to happen. Most of the time, like we were already talking about, like, you're doing things that you might not need to do. And so just cut them and trust what's best. And it just, I mean, adult life is full of sacrifices. So,
this is my last pitch, and then we'll leave everybody here for the day. It's also like the investment mindset and the scarcity mindset. And because people will look at, like, I can't afford a nanny, that's $500 a week or $500 a month, or I can't afford the Hive. I'm not going to put our prices on here. But it's then you ask the question, can you afford not to? Like, how much are you missing out on by always getting distracted by the kids during certain times? Or how much are you losing having to, like, being the bottleneck of your business and everything going through you and all your time getting pulled in all these other directions, when you should be focusing on getting new clients, managing your team, or more of a strategic vision approach? Like, how much are you losing by not doing some of these things? Because some of the best money I've ever spent was during that time is I got a nanny. It was a mom of a friend of mine, but still, it was like $800 a month I gave her, and I was terrified to do that. But in 2 months after I hired her, I was making twice as much as I was, which was far more than $800 that I was spending on her. So it's not being scared and being really critical with, like, where you invest, because you'd be surprised also the things that we invest our money in and time in that just don't yield anything. But we're willing to spend so much money on that, but we're not willing to spend money on a team that we can delegate and execute things on in my business, or like a nanny that'll give me so much time and so much less stress like your health alone,
Right.
the amount of money that's worth. So it's really looking at like where are you willing to invest, and is that in line with where you want to go and where you want your business to go. And a lot of you'll be surprised. A lot of people, it's like, no, I'll spend $400 a month on Starbucks coffee,
But not
trash
on a nanny.
coffee. Yeah, but
Uh-huh.
not on. But I won't spend a little bit more than that on a nanny. It's like very interesting, very very
Which
interesting.
goes, yeah, to that whole, like, to bring it full circle, you're talking about like taking a holistic approach. So like toss
Mhm.
onto your box of important and critical personal things too. Like, do you like, where do you want to go and what's the most important? And you can't always have the nice house, the nice salary, your whatever it might be. Some things do have to go. And again, Adriana and I will dig into like how to make those choices in our podcast, because it's
Mm.
we're skating over that as just like a general like just do it. And it's really hard to do, but make those you can give up your coffee to have a nanny. Or my friend she's has a full-time job, 3 kids, and also is starting a business, and she goes to the YMCA. It's free childcare, and she sits in the lobby and she's running her company by just taking that a little step a few times a
Mm.
week. And she's already now started with some nanny, etc. And so like you just build your way up. It's building blocks, baby
Mhm.
steps, but you can do
Yeah,
it.
100%. I love it. Adriana, anything to add? Do you want to sign us off? Do you want to send us away?
No, you've got it.
I love it. We're very excited that we officially announced months after the fact our partnership with the Hive. We're very excited for everything that we're doing, everything that's coming up, their podcast, our live in-person strategy workshop. What are we going to call it? We haven't even decided what we're going to call it really yet.
We don't have a name.
But it's going to be an expanded, more in-depth, more powerful version of the strategy challenge in person, a 3-day event. Everything's included. Your hotel room's included. Your food is included. We're going to be doing VIP dinner and networking events and that type of stuff. And it's going to be 3 days focusing on your business, being challenged not just by us, but by other business owners, different perspectives. You're going to get so much out of it. Maybe your next partnership, like we found with Sydney here, will be at that event, which is very, very possible based on the people that we already have going to it. So we're very, very excited. That's going to be in October in Rockaway, New York. We'll have more details coming out for that soon. But again, happy 2025. We're very, very excited for everything we have going. Thank you, too, for being here. We can't wait to have you back on, which will probably be on a lot more often now that we officially announced you. It's kind of like, you know, when you have like a secret like boyfriend or girlfriend and you're like you haven't told your parents for like months,
I don't
and then
think
it's
I've
like
had one
finally
of
out
those,
of the bag.
but
Sure.
we'll roll with it.
It's kind of like it's finally out now, so like whatever.
And how about it's more
You feel a
like
lot more.
when people, Zach, I'm going to help you out here. It's more like when people hard launch, it's like hard launching a new relationship on social media where like you haven't brought it into the public eye yet. I think that's more what you were talking about. We just hard launched our partnership between Summit Chasers and the Hive.
I'm going with the other one because now you're not afraid to bring them to like the family reunion and big events and that type of stuff.
Audrina, you should look into his past. All right, these secret girlfriends.
I know.
I have questions.
Interesting.
Yeah, my sneak. Yeah, right. All right, I'm gonna end it on that note before I dig myself too big of a grave. All right, I'll see you all next week, and until then, keep chasing your next summit. Oh, I hit that button. Oops. There we go.